Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Subtext Updates. Today, I want to go over how you can use subtext to teach you everything you ever wanted to know about deeply meaningful narrative structure. Let's say you were watching one of the 500 plus movies that are listed here. There's a couple novels, a couple plays, a couple television series. But let's say you're watching the menu and you'd like to know a little bit more about the narrative structure within. You have the four through lines here at the top. You have the main character and what is known as the obstacle character. It's usually the you and I are both alike conversation, which I think actually does happen in this film, if I recall correctly. And then a whole host of deeply meaningful thematic story points that are across the entire narrative. But this is very overwhelming. So how exactly do you go about learning all of this? The first thing you might want to do is just pull up Muse here and just say, hey, I'm watching the menu. Can you explore through lines? Now, this is Muse. Muse is your always on hand narrative expert who knows everything there is to know about narrative structure and has been trained on the last 3 decades of deeply meaningful storytelling. So it's actually starting out and telling what each through line is about. So you got the main character through line, which is the I perspective, the objective story through line, which is the they perspective, obstacle characters, the you perspective, and the relationship story is the we perspective. And the idea is that these 4 through lines tell a complete story. So maybe you already know that. I already know that. How do they show up in the menu? Now, you might be able to pick it up just by virtue of the fact that it's pretty clear in the storytelling. But if you don't, then Muse will help start to explain it to you. The story revolves around the Last Supper, which is what it's calling the plot of the menu. The story driver is action. The story continuum is space-time, which might be really crazy to you. The story outcome is failure, and the story judgment is good. This means that the plot is driven by actions. It takes place in a specific space and time. That's not actually right. The outcome is not successful, which is true, but the overall judgment or moral of the story is positive, which is okay. It correctly identifies the main character, which is Margot, and she remains steadfast in her resolve, indicating that she doesn't fundamentally change her approach or beliefs over the course of the story, which is true. Her growth is a start, meaning she needs to begin doing something or adopt a new trait to resolve her personal issues, which again is true. She is a beer, meaning she prefers to adapt herself to her environment rather than manipulate it. And her mental sex is male, which means she problem solves in a linear cause and effect manner. Excellent. So it's starting to explain to you what these different elements, these different concepts on the Storyform page for the menu, and you can watch along with it and learn. The obstacle character is Chef Slowick. He changes over the course of the story, indicating that he undergoes a significant transformation, which is true. And then the relationship story revolves around the solidarity of the disadvantaged, which is what their relationship is about. They're both from the opposite side of the tracks, right? So that's wonderful. And then it tells me to enjoy some popcorn, which is always fun. And then you can come down here and look at perhaps, let's look at the entire story form here, and then just have it explain to you what all these different things mean, what these different items mean. So you just say, I have the story form for the menu pulled up, and it says the objective story domain is in universe. What the heck does that mean? Because there's a good chance you have no idea what it means, unless you've taken one of my classes. So then, all right, sure. The objective story domain in the context of story structure refers to the type of conflict that all the characters in the story are dealing with, which is plot. When the objective story domain is in universe, it means that the central conflict arises from a fixed situation or condition that the characters are in. This could be a physical or environmental condition that they're stuck in. The characters are dealing with problems that stem from the way things are. In the menu, if the objective story domain is universe, it can mean that the central conflict revolves around the situation the characters find themselves in, perhaps the setting of the restaurant, the event of the Last Supper, or their roles within that setting. So you mean the fact that they're trapped in this restaurant with a psycho chef is where conflict and the plot exists in this film. And what's great is maybe you don't understand this and you need to ask further questions. You can just keep bouncing ideas off of Muse, and it's going to take literally 3 decades of narrative information, that is, and help answer that question. You've got it. The fact that the characters are trapped in the restaurant with a psycho chef is a fixed situation we're all dealing with. And whether or not they all escape is whether or not it ends in success or failure. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, stop. She does escape, but everybody else doesn't. And I guess there's even talk that maybe she doesn't escape. Maybe the burger's not as quite as good as you might have thought it would be. Okay, so then maybe there's other things. What is an issue of interdiction? Ah, great. I get it. So then when it says the best issue is interdiction, what does that mean? So as you're watching, you can just, if things pop up, you can either start to recognize it, because the absolute best way to learn any of this narrative theory is to have the experience of going through a particular narrative and seeing these story points reflected in that narrative so that you can build up your understanding of it and then apply it to your own story. Prediction, as defined in the memory matrix, is the effort to change the course of one's destiny. It's about altering the future, interfering with the predetermined. It could mean that in the menu, it can mean that the characters are trying to change the course of events or their fate within the restaurant. Like they're all trying to change it. And perhaps they're trying to escape, prevent the chef from doing something, or change the outcome of the Last Supper. So this is very cool. This is not trained on the script, the menu. It hasn't seen the film. It's just taking the narrative structure that is in here that has been identified and put into the memory matrix of Subtext. And then it's putting it up against the storytelling that it knows, also that I've provided here, and coming up with the answer for it. And this is exactly what happens in the film. So that's what I'm saying. You can learn anything you want to. And there's, like I said, there's all kinds of different films. There's romantic comedies, all kinds of different television shows, everything. Like here, it says this goal of the past. Okay, great. So what does it mean when it says every goal is the past? That's weird. How do you have a goal of the past? Hopefully it'll do a good job of explaining it here. Let's see. It says, oh, that might have been too difficult a question to ask. Oh, all right. So this is like the most recent advancements in technology. Sometimes it fails like that. Let me try again. When it does that mean for the video? It could be that the API timed out. There we go. Okay. Great question, James. When the story goal is passed, it means that the central objective or aim that the characters in the story are collectively concerned with revolves around the past. This could mean that the characters are trying to understand, reconcile with, or overcome something from the past. Why did he bring all of these people into the restaurant for this final dinner? Because they all did something to him in the past, and now they're going to pay for it. Past is coming up, creating all kinds of conflict. And you can ask that of any of these 75 story points. And that's just the plot. And I've just done 3 of those story points. And that could be enough for you to understand, oh, that's how some of this narrative structure works. The combination of all of these tells the story of the menu. The storytelling on top is what you as the artist provide to then take this story form and make it something uniquely yours. It could be anything that you want, but the key is to know when you're working with these AI systems to avoid the sort of repetition, just the most probable word that comes next. Oh, isn't this awful, going to destroy artists, all that nonsense. The key is to be able to understand what it is that you're trying to get out of using this tool, what it is that you're trying to say as an artist, and then how do you bring some form to that, some story form, to give your story a deeper meaning to it. And you can ask if their relationship story, so that's the relationship between the two of them. If their relationship story issue is suspicion, okay, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so let's switch to the relationship story. If the RS issue is what that mean for this story? And you can just have this open up on your phone or any kind of device that you have and just play along with the movie as it's unfolding before you. If the relationship story is suspicion, it means that the central thematic focus within their relationship is about doubt or mistrust, which really accurately defines the conflict between the two of them. If the RS issue is suspicion, it can mean that the relationship between the main character And the impact character or obstacle character, that's better, is characterized by doubt, mistrust, or suspicion. This could manifest as one character doubting the other's intentions, actions, or truthfulness. The issue of suspicion would be a recurring theme in their relationship, influencing their actions. Yes. It's less about what the two individuals will argue about and more about the issue that exists between them as a result of the relationship. So the suspicion that, that they're really more like each other than not, then you just have a conversation with it. It's like having an expert in narrative structure and narrative theory that you can then bounce ideas off of and learn as much as you possibly can about story structure. Absolutely, the suspicion could indeed be that they are more alike than they initially believe or want to admit. This realization could be a source of tension and conflict, but it also brings them closer together. That's the great thing about the relationship story through line. Not only conflict, but also helps that relationship grow. It's a common theme in stories where characters who seem different on the surface discover shared traits. This could lead to a deeper understanding or it could further fuel the conflict. Awesome. So you can very quickly go through all these different story points, ask all kinds of questions like, why is her unique ability situation? Okay, awesome. Let's go back, or let's go to the main character. What does a main character unique ability of situation mean for Margot? And if you don't know what the unique ability of a main character is, it will explain it. It will also explain it in context of situation, and then also hopefully explain it in terms of the menu. It means that she has a unique quality or circumstance that makes her particularly suited to resolve the story's problem. It's been a while since I've seen this, but I think I remember. In the context of the menu, Margot's unique ability of situation could mean that her specific circumstances or position gives her a unique advantage. Oh, for example, being from the wrong side of the tracks puts her in a unique position to cozy up to Chef Sloat. That's why she's the main character, and her unique ability that could possibly get everybody free is the fact that she's from the wrong side of the tracks, which is an illustration of situation. This is where I was raised. This is where I lived. My logistical situation in the environment gives me this unique ability where I can interact with this crazy psych. This could be because she understands something about the situation that others don't because they're all super rich, or because her situation allows her to do something that others can't, which is get in good with the chef. This unique ability is what makes Margot integral to the story. So now it's telling you about how a unique ability works. It's the key quality that sets her apart and makes her the main character. It's why nobody else can be the main character in the story. It's also what ultimately enables her to bring a successful conclusion to the problems everyone is facing. There you go. We just did 15 minutes and just did 4 or 5 different story points. And now you know more about the menu than you've ever known before. And now you can start writing deeply meaningful stories. So that's it for today's update. I will be back with more. Have a great rest of the day.